Too much. I can't. Socialization should be an issue for your kids. Homeschooling, I love it. I hate it. I mostly always love it. The true, honest part about this conversation is that all of the things I mentioned that make homeschooling so very difficult, they are pretty much all of the reasons homeschooling is such a treasure. Hello, it's Danielle, your homeschooling mother of 7. I'm here to talk to you about, oh, big surprise, homeschooling. I'm going to talk about things that I don't usually talk about. They're the hard things. They're not the fun, fluffy part of homeschooling. I am a huge advocate for homeschooling. I pretty much think that everyone should consider an alternative to public education. It might not always be that way, but right now, the way our system is, it would be a good idea to look at your alternatives. So I'm not going to pull any punches. I'm going to tell you straight to your face. Look at my eyes. Homeschooling is hard. It's not easy. You have your kids with you a lot. And there's a huge responsibility and a weight that is resting on your shoulders as a mom, as a dad, as a parent that is taking the education of their children onto themselves. However, the education of our children should never have left our shoulders. It is still our responsibility. It should never have been the state's responsibility. And all of us should feel a slight concern at the fact that the state is in charge largely of our children's education. So like I said, you have your kids with you a lot. And your kids, because they are familiar with you and familiar with the way you do life as a family, they might give you a lot more attitude than they would give a teacher. They might not be as easily motivated by you as a teacher. If I'm being completely honest, you're gonna wanna quit. And I want to quit pretty much every week, about 11:45 on a random Wednesday. But I want to quit like I want to quit going to the gym, and I want to quit eating vegetables. I want to quit because in moments it feels hard. It feels challenging. It feels overwhelming. It's like having too many things plugged into one socket and you flip a breaker. I have my kids with me. I get to focus on their hearts, their minds, their discipline. I get to work through those situations where they're giving me attitude, and I have to. We have to figure out how to live life as a family in a peaceful way. Wanting to quit something is not the same as quitting something. And I think that us as adults recognize that there are very challenging parts of life. And sometimes it's just having to get up and go to a job, get up and show discipline, eat right, exercise, expand our minds by reading, endeavor to put ourselves in social situations where we're challenged to grow, to make new friends, to build relationships. Things that really matter in life, relationships primarily, are difficult. It would be much easier to be by myself. I could read, and I could get a full night's sleep. There would be nobody causing me to lose my patience, so I wouldn't be stretched to grow my patience. I love the scripture in Proverbs 27. It says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. It's the relationships that help us grow. So everything that is challenging in life that has to do with being with people, primarily being with your kids, being with your family, they're the fun part. So I kind of ask myself when I'm having these moments where I'm like, this is all too hard, it's all too much, something has to give, something has to break before I freak out. What am I looking for in life? That's the question I have to ask. What am I looking for? Is it ease? Is it simplicity? Is it happiness? Is it peace? Like, what am I looking for? Because if it's ease, that's really the wrong thing to look for. And I think so often we try to change the big things. Like, okay, homeschooling doesn't seem to be working, so I got to put them in public school. I can't teach them myself. We jump straight to the dramatic shift. But what are the small things that we can shift and change to help with the big thing, to help with the big challenge? Now, as I'm looking at the hard parts of homeschooling, I would like to just mention 5 reasons people don't want to homeschool. And I think number 1, which I think is very weird, that is still in the number 1 spot because it's so ridiculous, is socialization, or the fear that your child will be in isolation. Maybe number 2 being the fear that the rigor of homeschooling will not be as great as the rigor of a public school setting, because you're doing a lot more hours, you have a lot more specifications. And I think one of the biggest fears, for me, I think this is would be a top concern, that I cannot school my children as well as, say, the teachers who have the degrees and have the qualifications. And I'm just going to list 2 more, and one would be time management. The fear that your child cannot manage their time as well because there's no one telling them how to manage their time. They don't have the bells and deadlines except for whatever you set for them. And then, of course, there's the financial element of schooling your children yourself. You take on that burden. I actually consider those 5 reasons to be some of the top reasons why you should homeschool. And so taking the first one, socialization, your children need to socialize with the people who are the greatest influences in your child's life. I'm not saying that children shouldn't be with their peers, but I am saying that children should not be with their peers for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. So I asked myself, who are the biggest influences in my children's lives? First two are their dad and me, and then their grandparents, their aunts and uncles. And then we're getting into their friends, which in my case, it would be their cousins. But their primary relationships are not found in the public school, so that is not the place that I would ever send my kids to get socialized. So let's just take that right off the list. I do think academic rigor is a concern. And because it is a concern, you should homeschool your children because there is no purity of academia in the public school system. None. You cannot find it there. Right now, it has too much of an agenda, too much bias. It's not trustworthy. If you care about your child actually learning how to think for themselves and not being taught to think a certain way, learning how to ask questions and then find answers, then the public school system is not where you teach them to do that. So these are concerns, but not in the way that they are framed to homeschool moms. You're not a qualified teacher. True, I'm not. But I am a qualified mom, qualified to mom the children I've been given. You know very little about the teachers you're setting your kids to learn from. And that is very concerning to me. So all these concerns that people say are a concern for homeschooling is actually, to me, a concern towards public school setting. We can grow and learn. We can actually learn how to be the best teacher for our children. I'm not saying I do it well all the time. We are living in a time of resources, and so this should not be a deterrent for any mom or any father wanting to teach their children at home, the fact that you are not considered qualified. Another reason why homeschooling is hard, they're always talking to you. Wow, that's the very thing I want. I want my kids to talk to me. I want them to ask me questions. I don't want them to go to a teacher in the public school when they have a sensitive question. And I certainly don't want them to go to their peers to learn all about all the wild stuff that's happening in our world. Time management, scheduling. Yes, this is an issue. And if someone is always telling your children how to schedule their time and they are not required to learn to schedule their time themselves, yeah, they're going to have a hard time with it. So this is a good reason to homeschool your kids, not a reason not to. And kids need time to learn all these things. And sometimes when everything is so rushed, they're not learning those things and they don't have the time to really learn, okay, if I have a job at 8 o'clock, then I need to try and get in bed by 9 so I can get up at 7 so I can take a shower. You know, just all of those things that unless they have skin in the game, unless they start taking ownership of their schedule, they're not doing it. If you're pushing them. So my kids have a really hard time in college. They've been pushed, and someone's been making them stay on schedule that now they really don't know how to stay on schedule themselves. So one of the negatives of homeschooling is, of course, the financial burden. And I right now am participating in a charter school, which I've been wanting to talk to you guys about. But my kids are in charter, and I haven't done this all the way through. I haven't done it with all my kids, but this is actually really helping with the financial responsibility of schooling so many children at the same time. So if you're in an area where they have charter schools, these are really, really valuable. I actually think that sending a child to a public school is expensive, even if you're not paying for the education. You are having to keep up with a lot of things. Homeschooling's hard. Do it because it's worth it. Because you know what's harder than it all of it? Regrets. Yeah, having regrets that you didn't get to spend that time with your kids when they were young. Remember, guys, no one can mom your kids like you. I'll see you next time.